Hi, and welcome to an episode of the JetRails podcast. I'm Robert, your host, and today we're going to be talking about live chat, and in fact, how live chat is creating a 5 times sales lift for e-commerce brands. And that sounds like a big number, and so I'm eager to dive into this with all of you today. I've got with me Mike, who is here with the JetSpring team, and he's had a lot of experience in this space related to live chat and other communication channels that really help to accelerate that e-commerce experience to the next level for shoppers. You know, the folks that really want to get back to a more personal experience, but want it to be convenient through the web. And so with no further ado, Mike, would you do the honor of introducing yourself?
Yes. My name is Mike Christie. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing with JetSpring. We are a company based in Radnor, Pennsylvania that provides customer service outsourcing for all types of companies. When I say customer service outsourcing, that consists of things like live chat, phone support, SMS text messaging, all types of messaging on social media platforms. So basically what we do is we can replace and outsource a customer service department within a company.
Awesome. I'm going to start off with the name because I really think that any business name that starts with Jet is just fantastic. What can you tell me about how the company came to be called JetSpring?
You know, it's just one of those things. The CEO of the company, Eric Cades, just thought it was a catchy name. No relationship to a jet or to a spring. The parent company is actually called JetSense. So JetSpring is kind of an offshoot of JetSense, but no particular story behind it. Just was a name that, kind of sounded cool. And, people ask me all the time, like, where'd you come up with that name? Which it's doing its job, pretty much is to get someone to ask a question about it.
It's funny. Well, look, in the case of Rails, at least, server racks have Rails. And there's some story there, but that's not for today's episode.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to stick to talking a little bit about the modality of customer communication, as live chat, and some of the others. I'm going to have to ask you about a couple of things that your team may or may not be doing, but that I think really fall in line with that. Let's sort of start off with, as much as e-commerce is bringing efficiency to shoppers, they respond better to human interaction in a lot of ways. That, yes, it's nice to hit on a website, get a price quickly, get some information really fast and easy. But in 2021, is live chat the initiative that's going to give them that proactive and that reactive result? Is that, a way that shoppers are going to reach out when they need more answers, and a way that the store owners are going to reach out when they want to offer support? Is it best only as a reactive or only as a proactive? Because I see different websites do this differently. Not everybody uses live chat in exactly the same way.
Right. Live chat is basically set up as a reactive tool. So when someone comes on to the website, needs more information about, and the products that are offered, or something that is perhaps on sale, and there's questions about, do you guys provide free shipping and all of these things? And I'm sure you've experienced that yourself. Live chat is really there to provide a real-time answer to their question. So you click on the chat icon, a window pops up. The agent will introduce him or herself and say, what's your question? You type in your question, and that agent then immediately responds with an answer. That answer can lead them to further questions, right? Which the agent can continue to answer. But ultimately, the goal with sales-related incoming, inquiries is to give them enough information to make a buying decision. And so, roughly 83% of the inquiries that come in about sales get converted to sales with a live agent. Versus if someone comes online and there is not the ability to answer a question and get an answer in real time, they just leave. They just leave the site. Some may fill out an email contact form answering their question, but the average response time for that is about 72 hours. And by then they probably have gone ahead and purchased it, somewhere else. On the proactive side, some websites are testing out a proactive form of chat, which is to, say, hey, I'm here. Do you have a question? And that does elicit some good response, as well, and engagement. But the proactivity really occurs after the initial contact's made, where, for example, if you're connecting on a support chat, like did my order ship already, for example, would be one. And our agent will go in and, go into the CRM and check to see if it's been shipped. If they answer, yes, it's been shipped. Oh, by the way, we're having a sale on, another item you might be interested in. Here's a link to go back into the site and get a 50% discount. So they will be proactive on the selling side if they're able to resolve the question on the support side. So typically our agents will convert 50% of the support related chats with a proactive process of selling. That's something that I think e-commerce stores they're not even aware that opportunity exists.
They're not thinking about the fact that you have the customer's attention, and this is a really great opportunity to upsell them or cross-sell them or something along those lines. Because when I think proactive, I think, the shopper's been hanging out on an expensive product page for a while, or they've got a lot of items in their cart and they've been sitting for a while, or maybe they're in the cart testing out coupons or something, that there's some tip off there that this might be a really good user, or they came in off of certain keywords, off of a Google ad, or, off of some particular advertising or such that says to you, hey, this may be a really good sale here. Let's make sure that we don't let them leave without answering their questions, without providing them whatever it might be, whether it be a discount, whatever it is that's going to help make sure that they purchase this here and today.
And we are
or that if they don't, that we get data that we know what happened and why they left.
Yeah, and you are starting to see more proactive conversations starting where the agent would pop up and say, I noticed you've been looking at this particular item. Do you have any questions? It's no different than someone walking up to you in a store when you're, leafing through the sweatshirts or the t-shirts or something, and they say, can I help you? It's really the same concept.
Yeah. I think if anything, in a store, sometimes I think for a lot of people psychologically at that point, they have a hard time dealing with that physical person who's working on commission, who they don't want to be rough with, but they just want to look around for a while longer. They're not ready for human interaction. Online, I think it's really easy to click the X. You don't feel like you've particularly offended anyone or done anything all that damaging. So there are those pros and cons that come with it, where it's so analogous to being in store, but yet it is different.
It is different, yeah.
And
like
I think that it helps.
You can always click out. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. But it's a courtesy to ask, do you need help? And a lot of people respond very positively to that.
Yeah, it's interesting how live chat, is probably very similar in other industries that aren't in e-commerce. But I imagine that for e-commerce users, there are some differences, maybe even the speed at which they're navigating through a site and how fast they expect to get answers and complete whatever transactions or whatever research they're engaging in.
Yeah, speed-wise, you want to be responding within 7 seconds. That someone clicks on that chat bubble, you want that agent, responding within 7 seconds is kind of the goal. The average is, quite a bit higher than that, but we found that kind of the optimum, conversion point is if we can get in front of them within 7 seconds, we're going to have their attention.
Yeah. Well, and the longer that you make them wait, the more that
they drop off.
Yeah, they drop off, or, I think maybe even start the conversation with a chip on their shoulder. Now they've invested time in, depending on what their issue is, especially if it's support related, maybe that frustration level increases a bit. In our business, speed matters. So that's something that we continually focus on, and making sure that, we have the capacity to provide speed. We don't want people waiting. Yeah. And before we started recording, I've got to talk a little bit about this. You told me that in your experience that live chat can increase the sales fivefold. And, to me, that's a big statement to make.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so what what experience is driving those kind of statistics? And, is that a reasonable expectation for an average merchant, or is that really focused on folks of a certain size or in certain verticals or situations?
Yeah, it's a good question. And a lot of people, when we throw that number out, they are obviously really skeptical about, that type of result because, and I come from the digital marketing world. So when I was working as a consultant, trying to move the needle on conversions was, hey, if you could increase conversions by 10% or 20%, that was a huge number. But to come in and say that I can 5x your sales almost immediately is, it really just does sound like an unattainable number. Like that's impossible. It's really not. And I'll tell you why. When you have people visiting a website where there is no way to contact, the owner of the website to say, I have a question. I will buy your product because I love it, but I have a question before I buy, right? Like how long, if I order it today, how long is it going to take for me to get it? Because this is for a birthday present or it's for Christmas or something. If you have no way to ask that question in real time, you're going to go to Amazon, perhaps, and order it because you can see right there, if you order by today, you'll get by tomorrow. You'll get it to your home by tomorrow. That Shopify store owner is going to lose the opportunity to get an order. So if you can imagine, all of a sudden, every single person that comes to the website who has a question is going to get an answer. That's where the bump occurs, and it's not just a bump; it is just a parabolic, curve. And it doesn't really matter the size of the website. I have a client who was basically his average orders were about $1,000 a month. Not a big e-com store. It's more of a hobby, if anything. Once he put live chat on his website, it went to $6,000 a month. So, again, the numbers don't, they don't lie. You can see I did this and this was what the result was. And all of our e-com clients that who haven't had live chat before, weren't using a chatbot, but they had literally no way of communicating with their audience, and they put it on there. It has that kind of effect in terms of sales. So it's just a paradigm shift more than anything, from not having the ability to connect in real time to now having the ability to connect in real time.
Look, I walked through Costco this weekend, and there were people there asking me about my cable, right. and trying to get me onto some AT&T product. There were people there trying to see if I wanted to sit in some kind of massage chair, and right. And what have you. Would there have been any chance that I would have, stopped to consider any of those things otherwise? No. I'm probably not their prime target, no matter right. what. Right. But I watched person after person that I'm sure wouldn't have given those things a second thought. Stop and get into conversation. And yeah, absolutely. There's a right. reason that those people are there and there are metrics behind them. Right. So, some of this certainly jives with what we all know to be true, that by engaging with people and getting them more vested into a purchase, by getting them to sort of stop and have a little bit of that relationship built, mm-hmm. That they will take it more seriously. And if you're trying to fight against, basically Amazon, the biggest place when it comes to commodity purchases, right. you want to stop it from being a commodity purchase. You want to build that relationship.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you mentioned Costco, because if you were just having a conversation with your wife that morning about, your service, and you walk in and there's AT&T offering a deal, you will stop and you will talk to them, right? Because it's top of mind. They'll have, an opportunity, like they say, an opportunity you cannot refuse, and you sign up. So that's one of the reasons why you see so much in the way of in-store demonstrations at Whole Foods and Costco and all these places. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. And think about the cost of having a person or maybe two people in a store for the entire day. That's basically, what live chat does the same exact thing at a fraction of the cost of doing it. This is one of the reasons why for people who have adopted it, they will never go back. They'll never take it off their website. because there's just too many advantages. And then on top of it, if you can factor in another metric too, Robert, which is what you do is when you get somebody to purchase through live chat, they will come back to your website to buy again and again and again because they know you have the support. So people say, I like that website because I know they have live chat. So if I have an issue, I'm not afraid to buy from them. So the lifetime value of a customer goes up significantly when you look at, putting, real-time agents, whether it be live chat or phone. You're going to increase the loyalty, repeat business, and also a person connecting will increase the average ticket value of about 60%, by about 60%. So not only is it do they buy, but they tend to buy more, when they're connected.
Yeah. When it came time to buy Halloween costumes this year, we went through that, and my wife and I like to shop small, medium. We try to work with different merchants, and absolutely, we want to get that feeling that if there is an issue, especially something timely like that there are human beings and that we will be able to work something out. And if we need to deal with it, that time is valuable, that we're not going to be, stuck chasing something down without a willing participant on the merchant side to provide that level of assistance. So it's a really big deal. And, I think it's interesting. Just think about your business model that you provide the labor, as part of your offering. How have labor shortages factored in? Because I know that that's a headline that we're all seeing in the news pretty much on a daily basis now. And I know that working in customer service can certainly be trying, that, you're dealing with a lot of personalities, and often the reasons that people are reaching out, they're not always coming with a clean slate. Sometimes there's already some animosity that starts off before there's been any communication with that individual. Does it, I'd say overall, is it hard to find people now to work in this kind of a role? Does it take a long time for merchants to get off the ground? Or is this something that people are more interested in doing with working remotely, or, right. Thinking of it in the opposite? Where does this fall in the current spectrum of, right. Of labor issues?
Currently, like everything else, companies cannot, if they have an internal customer support department, they cannot find people to come to work to answer the phones or to do live chat. So if they lose somebody, they don't have somebody they can replace them with. So they're having the same exact problems that every other employer is having for that type of position. Call centers, typically, traditional call centers that have a building, with floors of cubicles where the agents sit and call all day or speak with people and chat all day. They can't hire people because people don't want to commute to an office and sit in a little cubicle all day when they know that there's an option to work from home. So they're basically opting in for work from home jobs rather than going to a call center. So call centers can't find people. 8 years ago, JetSpring went to a work from home model for their agents. And the reason that we did it was we found that when we tested it originally, we got a much higher response rates to job postings. So when we said you can work from home, we were getting now access to agents all over the country rather than just the Philadelphia, area. So now we opened up the entire, United States to agents. The other thing that we got was we tapped into a whole group of agents who would never ever work in a call center. Like they just would never put themselves in a place where they're going to sit in a little cubicle and just, type on a computer or, be on a headset for, 8 or 10 hours at a time. So we found that we were bringing a lot of stay-at-home moms who had careers before, are home with the kids, but want something to do, would like to do some work and some part-time work. Now, all of our agents also have 4-year college degrees. So we have people that have, been educated at a higher education level. We have many agents that have their master's degrees, their PhDs. They're just people that are not in the workforce right now, who need a lot of flexibility and want to work from home and keep their brains stimulated. And also we work in the higher ed space. So we have colleges and universities that require that. They require that we have, people that are 4-year college educated. But when we're bringing on a new client, we have to bring on new agents. When we post for a job, we're overrun with applications because everybody wants to work from home. We also only allow our agents to work 4-hour shifts at a time because we don't want them to get burned out. So they work from home. They're employees of the company with benefits. We give them shorter shifts so that they're not, burned out. They can fit it into their schedule a lot more. We have a lot of part-time agents. We have a lot of full-time agents. So we have no problem hiring. In fact, right now, we are lending agents to customer support teams and call centers that don't have the people to cover for the holiday selling season. So we're kind of giving them people on kind of loan to just cover the busy season. And this has been a great model for us. I mean, when we first started it 8 years ago, a lot of people wouldn't work with JetSpring because our agents were work from home. It's like, oh, we can't trust somebody who's working out of their kitchen, to trust in our, to give our brand identity, and the reputation. And the reality is people are a lot more comfortable working from home. They're more relaxed. They don't have to worry about commuting. They're not putting their children in daycare. It's just a better environment for them.
And these are people that are communicating with other people all day long. So it's not that there's no human interaction.
Right.
So I imagine that also checks a box for a lot of these folks.
Yeah.
You mentioned 4-hour shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Do they sometimes work 2 shifts a day, or
they can?
Okay. So
yeah.
Because you mentioned full-time benefits and things. So these are people that might be working something more like full-time hours, just spread out a bit more.
Right. They work full-time hours, but we require that they take a break between shifts. Just so that, if they've got to run to the store, do an errand, do something with the kids, just take a mental break, like sit down and watch TV for a little while. Just get yourself leveled out, get your energy level back. Because when you are doing live chat, phone support, whatever it is, you are on all the time. So literally it is a 4-hour, shift. It's like running a marathon. If you can run a marathon in 4 hours, and you're never off. In fact, a lot of our agents can handle up to 6 chats at one time. So you've got multiple windows going on. The agents are answering multiple questions. So it's kind of like a dance for the agent, but it's intense. And if they do it for 8 hours straight, they do it for about 3 or 4 days, and they go, that's it, I quit. I can't do this all the time. And so we don't want the agents to burn out. We want them to be happy, feel productive, have energy, not be stressed out by the job. Because if they're stressed out, that comes across in the communication. And they need to be happy.
Now, I imagine that a lot of businesses have a hard time with the idea of a third party representing them, with someone that's not their employee, that they've trained, that they own the relationship with, that's out there speaking with customers on their behalf. What kind of training goes into getting one of these agents ready to represent a particular brand, or particular e-commerce website in this case? Because I imagine, like in the case of colleges and universities, that the cost of one potential student, the value of one potential student is very high. That your team, has some thoughts into how much time that an agent should spend learning about the brand and building up that rapport so that they're really ready to hit the ground running for that.
Right. It is the number one concern, objection, obstacle, because, almost every business owner is going to say, listen, you can never be as good as we are. Right. And we don't disagree with we don't say, oh, no, you don't understand. We can be actually better than you guys. We do understand their hesitation because, listen, when you are, emotionally and financially invested in, building a brand for years, you don't want to turn your reputation over to a third party, to an outside source, especially if you have an internal customer support team already. That's something that, they're very wary of, is having new agents come in. So we explain our process, which is that our training, is, from a kind of a protocol standpoint, is a lot more involved than any company does internally, simply because we are representing a brand. So we have to do a much deeper dive into, kind of the characteristics and personalities of the brand. So we kind of overdo it with our agents in terms of getting them to understand, what our clients are all about. The other thing that we do is that we will, if it doesn't exist already, build out a very, very, deep knowledge base, on their products, their offerings, and we use a very sophisticated knowledge base that's driven by AI, which allows the client to update that knowledge base automatically. We also, the program also prompts them based on the conversation. So if there's a conversation where the question isn't resolved, the AI will automatically contact the client through email and say, we need you to update this part of the knowledge base. So we constantly are doing that, and our agents are always, up to speed on that. But the other thing is we offer the client the opportunity to interview our agents. So to say, listen, let's go ahead and set up a conference call, and we want you to ask the agent questions. We want you to hear their voice. We want you to, kind of understand the way that they communicate by chat, all of these things, and give the client the opportunity to kind of run them through all the questions, all the hard questions, right? That their clients may be offering. And then finally, we will then, usually say to people that are really, skeptical about it, says, let's just run a test. Let's take one of our agents and just put them in with your agents. Just let them blend in and see how they perform relative to your agents. And see if you can tell the difference. See if you can pick out the agent that's not yours, type of thing. And typically, in the end, a lot of people, a lot of our clients will come back and say, your agents are actually better than our agents. Okay, they're concluding the chats faster. They do more chats per hour. They convert at a higher level. Just simply because they're trained to do chat. They're trained to do phone. Versus a lot of times within companies, they're taking people from other departments and sticking them into that role today. Like, we need somebody to answer the phones today, right? So, okay, somebody that was working in some other capacity is now sitting and answering the phone and not fully up to speed on how to do it. And so that's kind of the process, but you're 100% correct in that it is a huge, huge point of friction and objection when we get into the conversation, with a prospect about doing it.
Do you find that it's easier to onboard if they have a handful of products, dozens of products, maybe hundreds of products, but if they have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, much bigger catalog, that onto itself is a challenge, that now there's a lot of industry knowledge. So I think things like, if you're going to be representing something in, I don't know, hunting and fishing, that, somebody that's been working the sales floor in the store maybe knows a lot more about, rods and reels and lures and things versus, trying to instill that level of knowledge into a new agent that hasn't been in that space.
Yes. And that's it. Obviously, we're not as knowledgeable as an REI floor associate, who actually went camping with that equipment that weekend, right? And said, oh no, I used that stove this weekend. It's awesome. There isn't that level of familiarity, obviously, because, our agents aren't necessarily using all of the products. If we're talking about an industrial application, our agents are not structural engineers. They're not aeronautical engineers. They're not able to, get into that level of knowledge about it. But typically when what we're trying to do is and what we do very, very well is we're the front line of communication for a website that is, that has traffic. And sometimes all our agents are doing are making that connection and then moving it to another level, right? So we're making the connection, finding out what the need is, and telling them, this is what we're going to do in order to get you the information that you need. We have a person that's going to call you back with that particular technical information about that particular part, that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but just, having that level of service where you connect with someone, they listen to you, and they give you an answer which is to elevate it, and you're going to get a call from somebody within the next hour with your answer. That's all the consumer needs. They're like, thank you so much. I'll expect their call or their email or whatever. But that experience is as valuable as giving them the answer, that they need. And
that usually does the trick for me.
Right.
Now, that gets me to bring up, though, what doesn't usually work for me. And I was taught years ago not to use myself as a barometer in these situations. But I'm very rarely a fan of chatbots, unless I need something very basic, like, tracking status on something, something that the bot can answer. I feel like it's using my time. It's almost like, dialing into the cable company and being forced to go through 10 layers of menus to try to finally get to a human being, when that's my ultimate goal, and that I'm not going to get those minutes back that I spent trying to fight a system that doesn't want me to talk to someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find that sometimes using some of that AI, using some bots as that first level is helpful, or at least giving people an option if they just want, one of a few things that can be answered that way?
Chatbots are perfect for the frequently asked questions that are repeated over and over and over and over again. So if on a particular website there are 10 questions that get asked constantly, then a chatbot can very easily look like a human there, right? They can have a name, they can, have a little bit of a personality, but they know what the answer is to the question. So the consumer, the website visitor, is going to get the answer that they need. The challenge is when they ask a question that's not in the knowledge base, right? And that AI cannot figure out because it hasn't been programmed, for them. They'll learn from it, right? But that doesn't help the person that's now asking the question. So kind of the progression of AI with live humans is to allow AI to identify, the user's question. And if they can't answer it, to then switch to a live agent very quickly and seamlessly, so that the website visitor doesn't even know that they're being transferred to a live agent. And that's kind of where it's going, Robert, because AI will never, ever replace, what the human can do in terms of reading responses, right? I mean, there's a lot of nuance in the English language, and in the tone of a message or in a conversation that AI can't, or, may take decades to perfect. But IBM and Apple are working pretty hard on that. So stay tuned.
We'll see. I think some of it comes down to the nuance of resolving issues. So, if I have to deal with a chatbot about something like, I got an item in the box that, I got extra items that weren't mine, and I don't want to be a thief. I want to alert someone that this happened. It's not my fault, but, I've wound up with these things the same way that if I walked out of a store with something, saw something in the bag that I didn't pay for, chances are I'd be walking back in with that. And the amount of rigmarole to try to deal with that sort of issue with even the biggest of brands, they have a hard time.
They have a hard go ahead.
And there are cases where, depending on the value of the product, they'll tell you just keep it or donate it or whatever it may be. But sometimes these are higher ticket items, and I don't understand how they wound at my doorstep, but here they are.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because what happens is, I'll give you an example with mattress companies. They say, if you don't like the mattress, return it. Well, the reality is if you don't like the mattress, somebody comes and picks it up and throws it in a landfill. They don't bother returning it because it's too expensive to do it. But and
then cleaning it, wearing it for the next person, and so on and so forth, selling it as sort of a refurb. I imagine that's not very good in the mattress industry.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and a lot of times when people are in that situation, they're frustrated, they're angry. The last thing they need is for the chatbot to respond by saying, "Here are links to articles that you can read to get your answer." Right? So they give you links, and now you have to go do the research yourself. That's where chatbots fail, because I'm interacting with a chatbot for 5 minutes, and then it tells me to go do my own work. Humans don't want to burn calories like that. They just want somebody to give them the answer. And that's why, we're really far away from chatbots replacing human agents.
Or don't make me play 20 questions first just to send me somewhere because you don't have the answer. Right, let's understand right from day one that I asked a question that you can't answer, and let's
just be honest,
get me to something that can.
Just be honest and say, I can't answer the question, but I'll have somebody contact you within the hour who can. And that's what the consumer wants. They want transparency, and they want to know what's going to happen next, right? And they're fine with that. They're perfectly happy with a response like that.
So, with chatbots, hit or miss. Live chat, we've got 2 thumbs up as far as this conversation goes. What about other types of communication? I know that your team has a lot of hands-on experience with things like SMS and phone calls. Do you find that for e-commerce specifically, that live chat is sort of that gold standard, that if you don't have that, that can be more proactive and instant on the website. And so that's sort of where you would typically, in most situations, tell people to start, and then everything else is icing on the cake?
Yes. Live chat, for example, 70% of consumers would prefer to chat than talk on the phone. And that number keeps going up. So I would say within the next several years, you'll find that number up over 80, 90%, simply because people they don't want to dial the phone and be put on hold if there's an immediate, like I always look at it this way, is that when I go on live chat, if I get a very quick response and I get a real person versus a bot, I love the brand. And, I just will always do business with that brand because I can communicate quickly. A lot of times I'll call their support line. Message says nobody's around, leave a message, or the hold time is 35 minutes. Give us your number and we'll call you back. That type of thing. If they're good, they'll say that. But live chat is the gold standard. SMS text messaging is really effective once you have chatted with the website visitor and they've given you permission to text them. So you have to have permission in order to do it. You can't be proactively text messaging somebody just because they visited your website. You have to capture the phone number and ask them if it's okay to send them messages. So, live chat's the fastest way to do it. Believe it or not, though, email is still the number one form of communication that people prefer. 63%, prefer, email communication over everything else. But, as it relates to e-commerce real time, I need an answer. Live chat is what they prefer.
Yeah. Well, I imagine part of email, is, and the same reason that your team likes to build a knowledge base for everyone. Yeah. There is one place, one source of truth. Everything's time stamped. It's not, that if they, whether, their kids, their job, whatever, that they have to do it in real time. And if they walk away, they're going to lose the agent. Right. That it's pretty transparent and pretty direct. And, they're not going to be put on hold or anything. Hold. So,
and there's
so there's some nice,
there's
nice
a thread for that conversation they can follow, and they can always go back to it. I call it the magnet on the refrigerator. It's kind of like you clip something on the refrigerator and it sits there and you can always go back to it. That's what email is for the most part.
Yeah. Look, in web hosting, we certainly deal with support tickets and even things that are coming in over the phone or through other communication channels that we have with different clients and partners and such. Having everything in the ticket system where there's that transparency, adding those notes in there, it's huge, because a month later, somebody else is on ship, trying to catch back up. It is lovely to have everything in that one place, and where sort of there's that cue that that the entire support team is watching, and that that if you haven't opened that ticket yet, you kind of want to get in the queue when you can. There are things that we recommend people call in, of course, but more often than not, best place to start is opening a ticket, and it's the exact same reason behind it. Look, have you seen any common threads in terms of live chat campaigns, live chat channels being set up where it's failed, where it hasn't worked out well? Are there things that typically, make or break one of these rollouts?
Yes, and if you don't have traffic to your website, obviously, live chat's not
no one
going
to talk
work.
to. Yeah.
But also, if the knowledge base isn't built out, well, to where the agents, can't really provide answers because the client doesn't, provide the information needed for the knowledge base. Yeah, it's not gonna work well. So it's really a two-way. It's a relationship where the more the client can give us in terms of, knowledge about their products, about their promotions, about all of these different things, we have a very, very sophisticated, AI-driven knowledge-based platform that allows us to be as good, if not better, than their employees and their in-house people. But it has to come from them. And they also need to be proactive as far as updating that knowledge base. So when they change coupon codes, for example, this is one of the biggest issues. They create a new coupon code, they change a coupon code, they have an offer that's hitting their homepage, right? But they haven't told us about it, right? So somebody is chatting and saying, well, I want to know more about, the special that you have on, trucker caps. And the agent's like, I don't know anything about trucker caps. Just so the client has to be very proactive as far as making sure that the knowledge base is updated before they launch something is really what it comes down to. And that way we can respond to it.
I imagine. So there's that. And then there's they've got to make good on if your agent takes a situation and says, we're going to get back to you, that they really need to have that follow through. So somebody reaches out and says, hey, I sent a return in, your team received it. Here's the tracking number. It got to you a week ago. My credit card hasn't been refunded yet.
Right.
Well,
so a lot of clients,
that's not something the live agent is probably going to be able to resolve on the spot, but someone in, at the merchant side is going to have to resolve it and close it out.
Yeah. And so what we've done in many, many cases with eCommerce is that we've been able to front all of the incoming support questions, sort through them, prioritize them through Zendesk, and in essence, to create a ticketing system to their back office. So the back office people, all they're doing is resolving the questions rather than fielding and researching and then resolving them. So we're able to make their time much more efficient. And so, but it is, what you're saying is exactly right. When we create a ticket, it's got to be, worked on immediately. And
finance doesn't need to spend 10 minutes with somebody just to issue them a refund. They can just process the refund.
They can process it. And then what happens typically is, and that will get elevated to where they give our agents access to their platform. So we can go into their Shopify account and we can do everything that needs to be done automatically and get it done right there for the customer. And that's really where you see, the conversion numbers just, really explode, simply because customers, if they're getting the answers and they're getting resolutions to their problems, they will keep coming back to that website to buy. And they'll tell their friends too, this is a good company to do business with.
Yeah. And speaking of conversion rates, I know that, when I think about something like a call center, there are a lot of different metrics that get tracked, and you've mentioned a few already.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's setting up live chat, are there some particular KPIs that you recommend or highly recommend that they start tracking?
The KPIs basically will be, under the, category of how quickly is the agent responding from the time that a notification comes in. That's a really, really critical one. The length of the chat, how long is the agent, talking to them, the percentage of chats that are sales versus percentage of chats that are service related. So for example, if you only have 10% of your chats are sales related and 90% are service related, then you might have a service problem. You might have something that's not going well, on the website. Typically we'll see 50-50 sales to service, related chats. So that's something that we want to keep an eye on. Also how your sales are being affected by chat. So, that's just, hey, we started chat on X, day on this particular date. Here's what's happening with our sales relative to last year. Will give you a good example of that. change in the number of positive reviews you're getting online. So if you see, for example, Trustpilot reviews, your number of stars is increasing, over time. That's a very, very, key indicator to the fact that the agents are having a positive effect on reviews. Lifetime value of a customer is an important metric to take a look at. So if the LVC is increasing over time as a result of having live chat, it means that having the agents are working, and also from the standpoint of repeat business, when you look at the number of people that are coming back to the website, to buy again, that's key. I have, when I worked as a consultant several years ago, one of my clients had 850,000 customers, in his Shopify account. The number of people that bought more than one time was less than 5,000. So the challenge there is there are a lot of one and done, e-commerce stores. They come in, they buy once, the people never come back. And the only reason they don't come back is because they didn't have a great experience. People are willing to pay a lot more money for a good experience. Some Forrester, I think, quoted, as much as 40% more if they have a positive experience. So it's important.
Where, platforms like Shopify that typically provide a more cookie cutter experience, it's harder to get that really good experience. I deal with a lot more by volume merchants that have open source platforms where they spend a lot of time customizing and engineering and creating something that will create those lasting customer relationships. But it is tough.
Yeah.
And I think, but no matter what, they still need these, communication channels and these things that, regardless of platform, it's the same challenge. It's being able to, to check some of these boxes that are going to address some of this user experience. And, getting something like live chat set up on the site, based on the technology that your team prefers to use, is it a quick snippet of code, a little bit of JavaScript? Is it a little bit more in depth?
Not really. It's basically, we put some code, or the webmaster, installs some code, on the website. So you make sure it hits all the pages. And that's really, once that connection is made, then you are, in our Ring Central Engage platform, and you're live. It's very bad. It's actually,
they could be on a completely custom platform. They could be on SaaS. They can be on something open. So it doesn't matter. You just need to be able to drop in some code for the front end.
That's it. We just need to be able to put code on, so that little icon pops up. And so when you click on it, now you're connected with us.
Yeah. And, we talked a little bit about burnout earlier, and I wanted to touch on it, that I kept thinking about it. Are there ways that you train your staff to handle customers that are hot under the collar, folks that are using stronger language, or because I think that right now that it is a big challenge that I don't know. I didn't live through maybe the 1950s or what have you, but it definitely feels like, as a society, when I am out at stores, that you see a lot of people that don't hold back very much.
Well,
is that a part of the training?
Yeah, we actually answer the phones for 800 car washes for a company that provides a kind of a loyalty program for them, and so they, basically we answer the phone for all of the people calling in, and people get upset when their car gets scratched or damaged, or there's streaks on the windows or drips on the car, and all of that. All of that. So yes, you do get a lot of people that are agitated, and they are, their temperature is heightened. But basically, the way we train our agents is with two things: to be empathetic and to listen. So we never ever challenge an angry customer, because that's not going to go anywhere by saying, oh well, and it's not our fault, it's yours, right? We'll usually say something like, I understand why you're upset. I'm here to help you. All right. So typically when you hear those words, all an angry customer, all they need to know is that they're being heard. and they're being understood. And we recognize, yes, you have a problem. We understand you're upset. We're here to just help you. So tell me what the problem is. And so when we do this, for example, with the car wash customers, a lot of car wash operators would say, oh, well, we can't trust that your agents are going to be able to handle angry customers. And we tell them they actually can, and they will de-escalate it. So by the time it gets to your people who can solve the problem with a scratch on the car, for example, they're not going to be screaming at you. They're going to be saying, oh, I had a conversation with with one of your people, and they said that, you were going to get in touch. So let's talk about it. And it's not the screaming person talking to the manager of the car wash who said, it's not our fault, we didn't do it. So we can de-escalate something to a level and a temperature level that everybody can live with.
Do you offer these services for marriages? Because I'm thinking one of your chat agents might really help me some days around here.
Well, I'm thinking that might be a good vertical for us to focus on. Because listen, it's universal that when you have customer service, you are going to have upset customers, period. So it's across the board. But we might have to look at that.
That's pretty interesting. Now, I do want to ask a last follow-up question. Because I think there are a lot of metrics. So we talked about KPIs and things that the merchant should be looking at in terms of the success of the program. But when you think about an individual agent and how they work in these situations and all sorts of different things, how do you monitor and measure for that? What's your thought process around that?
Well, we obviously, with the amount of experience that we have, we can take a look at how long, one of the key metrics we look at for an agent is how long they're chatting, how long they're talking, right? Compared to other agents that might have more experience and more time in than they do. Obviously, we have transcripts of every chat. We have recordings of every phone call. And we have a team of people that do nothing but listen to the calls and monitor the chats. So if they see that an agent is maybe not getting to the point fast enough, or asking too many non-relatable questions, right? Too much what I call chit chat. There's too much chit chat going on. They can go to the agent and say, okay, listen, here's what we suggest you do in situations like this, because we want to make sure that chat, you're just using the time for the chat to answer the question, to develop rapport, but you don't need to have a long-winded conversation with them. So we do look at that as a metric, because obviously we want the agents to be as efficient with their time as possible so that they can cover as much ground as possible with chats, especially with live chat. And as I mentioned to you before, a good agent can handle up to 6 conversations at one time. So if we find that an agent can only handle 2 or 3, we want to help to increase their capabilities to multitask, with use the tools that we provide them to be able to do that. But that's a key metric, for us.
Makes sense to me. Well, Mike, you've been really generous with your time today. Before we wrap it up, any final thoughts, anything that we didn't cover today that you think would be really impactful to the conversation? That you'd like to add, anything out of your crystal ball that you think is coming down the pike?
I think would be beneficial for your audience is to understand that customer service is the new marketing. So you can spend all this money on Facebook advertisements and ways to generate traffic to your website, but if you provide an amazing customer experience by allowing your website visitors to get the information they need to buy or solve their problem in real time, that is the best form of marketing that you can provide, period. And that customer service basically is free marketing when you think about it. Building, a trusting relationship that's going to increase loyalty and return business, that doesn't cost you anything, with the exception of what it costs you for the agent. But the point is you can get a customer for life. What's the value of a customer for life versus a one-time, sale? So that's pretty much what I can offer out there in terms of the perspective on why this is such a valuable tool.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining today. For our viewers and listeners out there, thanks as always for tuning in. Stay tuned for more great content like this shortly. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy selling out there.
Thanks you, Robert. I appreciate it.